Hey guys, sorry that I'm a bit late on this video here, I still can't get the stuff too quickly, but I really wanted to talk about this topic as a big fan of Assassin's Creed, even if my life as a fan of this series lately is basically enduring letdown after letdown these days. Although that new Mirage expansion is actually looking kinda good. But anyway, in short, some news broke last week with a games journalism outlet called GameFile claiming that an Assassin's Creed game was recently cancelled. The game was going to be set just after the American Civil War back in the 1800s, and we would be playing through the Reconstruction era around 1860 and 1870 as a liberated or escaped black slave fighting against the rise of the KKK. And the reason for the cancellation is apparently because of unstable politics in the United States of America. So basically, in other words, the political climate is too spicy for a game with such themes and undertones, and so the big wigs over at Ubisoft Paris decided to shut it down. I believe this entire story might be false, and I'll be explaining why, but since I'm not sure, and there's no real way to confirm it one way or the other since there are no sources listed for this information and Ubisoft has refused to comment, I'll also talk about the concept itself and why Ubisoft would fail in their endeavor to bring this game to completion, even if it was real. So let's not waste any more time and get right in there. So obviously this news has lit a fire on Twitter, and now over the past few days we've had scores of shills, games journalists, activists, fan pages, and even content creators coming out and lamenting how terrible this is, how this concept for an Assassin's Creed game was literally the best thing ever, it was perfect, and how we got chuds to thank for it not happening. I've even seen some mentally unhinged folks sending threats to Grums and Endymion for this. Now, like them or hate them, it's utter insanity that people are being harassed over a story that isn't even confirmed to be real, and that honestly wouldn't even matter one way or the other because Ubisoft has been in a state of decay for years now, where their only decent game of late was a Prince of Persia game that they nuked the studio of because of not meeting their expectations. Ubisoft has given up on pleasing fans ages ago. Assassin's Creed Shadows marks a steep drop in quality in everything except visuals, and if half of the people crying online over the past few days because of this supposedly cancelled game had actually bought Assassin's Creed Shadows, maybe Ubisoft wouldn't have gone this entire time without giving us their sales numbers, and wouldn't have had to chop their own arm off and relinquish control of their major franchises over to Tencent just a few months ago to ensure their survival during this time in constant freefall. And even that is something that I say with a degree of salt, because do I really want to support a company that wants me to get used to not owning my games? But anyway, that's old news. Let's get to the nitty-gritty here. The article states a few important things that I want to highlight here. Number 1, this game was supposedly cancelled last year already, in July, following backlash to Yasuke's reveal, which was in March. Number 2, this was codenamed Project Scarlet, and Ubisoft Quebec was leading its development. Number 3, this would have been the next mainline RPG for the franchise. This is very important, so keep that in mind. Mainline RPG. And number 4, this would have been scheduled to launch in October 2027. Some bonus information here is that this was stated by 5 current and former Ubisoft employees who spoke to GameFile under anonymity because they were not authorized to speak about the project. Ubisoft was reached out for comment, but didn't say anything. Developers were apparently very enthusiastic about this project and were then very frustrated by its cancellation, which they apparently perceived as Ubisoft bowing down to controversy. 3 sources told GameFile that word filtered through the company last July that management in Paris had stopped development of the game for 2 reasons: online backlash to the reveal of Yasuke and the concern that the political climate was becoming too tense in the USA. According to another article here by IGN, this project was only in the concept phase, but early work had already been greenlit by Ubisoft bosses in Paris. Sources had told GameFile that the idea behind the game had been to show how racial tensions can be used to control society, and I would say that's about everything that is relevant here, so that we can move on with the discussion. Oh, and also GameFile states that while game cancellations are not unusual, this one was. but I don't know why, because the article is actually behind a paywall and I'm not going to pay for it. Nobody else of the other outlets that I looked into said anything about this, so I don't know what the reasoning is here. I think it's very normal for games to get cancelled. I mean, especially lately. Have you guys seen the amount of games that got cancelled? I mean, of course, for this one they would say it's different because it's because of political reasons, but I mean, come on. Let's get real here and let's talk about why I don't buy it. I find this story to be really strange and to be coming at a really strange time. First of all, Assassin's Creed Shadows has seen so much dishonest reporting that to believe anything at all that gets reported on it by the media is hard enough. Even in these very articles, of which I used IGN, GameFile and game developer websites, they waste no space to mention how successful Shadows has been. And I've already talked about this particular issue like 3 times before this year, calling out articles and content creators who were blatantly lying or misrepresenting information to all of us about Shadow's supposed success, so I won't bother doing it again, but suffice to say that some of their biggest lies have included misrepresenting player numbers with sales numbers, which incur a massive difference in revenue, because of course a player includes people subscribed to their service who tried the game, which is $18, and a sale of the game is $70, so that's nearly barely 1/4 of what a sale is worth. Yet these assholes use the word sales and tried to get away with it. Another instance of this was manipulating sales data, filtering it through specific dates with specific circumstances in specific countries to make Shadows look like it was topping sales charts. Furthermore, they hired or employed or whatever an activist to write fake articles about how all the backlash online criticizing Yasuke was exclusively coming from white Americans and Europeans, and that Japan was actually super enthusiastic about the legendary Black Samurai. This activist was a former Sweet Baby Inc. employee, by the way, and it wasn't written in some personal blog post, it was actually written and published as part of an outlet. I can't remember exactly which, it was a New York something. I'll try to find it while editing. This lie didn't last very long, as many videos and comments from Japanese content creators started flooding YouTube criticizing what was being done. So excuse me if I'm immediately walking into this on the back foot, like, you know, I'm sorry for being skeptical, but it is what it is. Now let's move on to the actual spaghetti in the middle of all of this. So as far as number 1 goes, it's not a big deal, but I'll mention it anyway. I find it hard to believe that this was cancelled due to backlash to Yasuke's reveal, because initially Ubisoft was actually very confident about it. They were doing big media runs promoting the game with Yasuke, and it was only afterwards, when getting closer to launch, that Yasuke seemingly disappeared from promotional material. At the time, the CEO, Yves Guillemot, was even going online and calling people racist for their opinions on the criticism of the game. So I find it a bit funny that if you're so concerned about the political climate, if you're so concerned about the way that people react to the criticism, why would you incite even more criticism at the time? But whatever, potato potato, that's not really important. What's far more important is number 2, 3, and 4. So this game was apparently being spearheaded by Ubisoft Quebec. This is the exact studio that was also spearheading Assassin's Creed Shadows. The way Ubisoft manages to keep churning out garbage is they have various studios, and each of their main studios is handling a mainline release for a few years, usually around 4, and then they're able to coordinate their releases as such. That's why they got so many goddamn games coming out. While one studio is finishing their 4-5 year long project, some other studio is about to finish theirs next year, so on and so forth. And hey fellas, if it's not finished yet, it doesn't matter either way, just release that motherfucker while broken. I mean, hey, you gotta make hay while the sun shines, am I right, boys?
Oh my god, bro.
Oh, hell no.
What the fuck?
Now, I checked out how big Quebec's studio is, thinking that maybe it's some sort of huge hive with thousands of developers spread across at least 2 teams, but that's not what I found at all. It seems that this studio has around 500 employees. Now, if you've seen this game's credits, you'll remember how comically massive they were. I believe Quebec had all hands on deck on Assassin's Creed Shadows, and so they couldn't have been working significantly on any other game, which would corroborate with the information on IGN's Twitter's version of this article, where it states that this was only in concept phase and that the early work had been given the green light by Paris. But this isn't corroborated with the other articles, nor with the rest of the supposed facts. This was meant to be the next mainline RPG for the franchise. See, if it was supposed to be some sort of shorter side project like Assassin's Creed Mirage or maybe Assassin's Creed Chronicles, I could see that kind of being the case, but they clearly stated that it was going to be the next mainline release and an RPG. These games take time to make, and the release date was scheduled for 2027. And unlike some other studios, Ubisoft is actually not big on delays. In fact, I was kind of shocked when they delayed Shadows from 2024 to February of 2025 because they don't usually delay stuff. If they have to release a game broken to holy fuck, they'll just do it. Just ask Star Wars Outlaws, where you were supposed to be playing a third-person shooter with stealth, where the fucking stealth didn't work, and the character would drop her weapons when climbing a ledge or interacting with a damn ladder.
The game is broken! I'm losing every single game! Again! Again!
So all of this stuff just isn't connecting here. For the game to be a mainline RPG and scheduled to release 2 years from now, they would have to have significant work done on it, not be at a concept stage. Concept stage, release set 2 years from now? Somebody's losing fucking ground here. This sounds more like a few stooges making shit up and not being able to keep their stories together. Whether those stooges are game journalists trying to drive traffic for their dying websites, or random Ubisoft employees who are, I don't know, ass mad about something, I don't know. It's irrelevant either way. But it certainly is strange. But let's explore more weird things about the story. I don't even think the concept would work. Not story and setting wise, I actually think that when it comes to the story and setting, it would have been a far better idea than shoving a black guy in Japan and try to lie to people by claiming that he was a historically accurate black samurai, then bending the entirety of the Japanese history, culture, and personalities of the characters of that time to be fully centered on glazing him. With key amazing moments such as when Yasuke, the foreigner who's been in the country for 6 months, has already fully mastered Japanese martial arts and overpowered a master assassin who, in his dying breath, said that he was the greatest samurai ever. Or like when Yasuke, again the foreigner who's been in the country for 6 months and lived an uncivilized life before being taken as a slave, knows more about Japanese and especially samurai teachings and honor and culture to the point where he is the only one who steps up after Oda Nobunaga gives a dishonorable kill order on the aforementioned master assassin. Or like when Yasuke, the foreigner who had been in the country for 6 months, I don't know if I mentioned that yet, bangs Oda Nobunaga's sister, a woman who was known first and foremost for her love and loyalty to her family, to the point where she died alongside her husband when besieged, or you know, when the main villain, Lord Mitsubishi or whatever the fuck his name was, glazes Yasuke like, "Oh, you are the best of us," or just small ridiculous things when you enter battle in game and fucking hip-hop music starts to play, because of course it does, why wouldn't it? He's black after all. Honestly, all that's missing is a DLC where Yasuke starts a basketball league in Sengoku period Japan, introducing the sport to the east. Shit, maybe opens up a couple of KFC chains in Kyoto as well, who knows? The sky is the limit, guys, and Ubisoft always knows how to deliver. Maybe in the Civil War Assassin's Creed game, you'd get to, you know, the guy who you get to play as would bang Lincoln's wife.
Oh hey, I'm just about to go to bed. I know we couldn't Skype tonight, but that's alright. Good night, girl. I'll see you tomorrow.
Oh god, okay, honestly, forget about it. Anyway, story and setting wise, at least this Civil War / Reconstruction era of American history would make much more sense instead of the diatribe of bullshit that Ubisoft pulled out of their ass and Thomas Lockley's bullshit book. But what doesn't make sense to me is the report of this being yet another entry in the RPG era of the Assassin's Creed franchise while simultaneously being set in the time and place that it is. because you gotta remember that this implies all of the mechanics that we currently have and the structure of the form that the kind of gameplay, you guys know what I mean, that we've had over the past games since Origins. Everything has been built on Origins system. There are things that you can add and tweak, but not really change to a significant degree. I think if this was a project that had any thought at all put into it, it would have instead been disregarded as a mainline RPG entry and would instead be allocated to the new shit that they're trying to develop with Assassin's Creed codename Hexa, or whatever it's called, which is a female-led Assassin's Creed game that will be set in Germany, I believe, during the witch trials, and will be apparently playing as a witch. Not much is known about this game in terms of how it'll look and play, but what it is known is that it's a fresh project where the open world RPG thing is no longer implemented. I think this Civil War Assassin's Creed would end up in the same situation if it was actually real, or at least something that was given any thought at all and a green light of any kind, because we're talking about an era and a location that would look a lot like the shit that we saw in Assassin's Creed 3. Much of the setting would be in the rural south, which was, well, rural, with vast plantations, many abandoned or in disrepair after the war, small farms and scattered small towns, with the occasional log cabins here and there, maybe one or multiple main city areas that would look like what we also saw in Assassin's Creed 3 with the brick buildings and the colonial era style homes and churches, so on and so forth. There could also be a chance of a wilder western frontier, and this isn't even that far away from the setting of Red Dead Redemption 2, which was in the 1890s, so about 20 years after the time that this game would be set in. Now you look at that and it's really not easy to imagine how the usual RPG template would fit in and work here. The last S Creed games have been able to use this template because it used settings where melee-focused combat was a normal thing, where random people you would come across, or mercenaries or guards or soldiers, etc., would normally carry swords, shields, axes, spears, hammers, clubs, so on and so forth, which allowed for that, Souls-like-ish combat. It's not Souls-like at all, but it's the easiest way to explain. You got your light attack, you got your heavy attack, you got your dodging, you got your going behind the guy and doing the charge attack, you got your abilities on the side, etc. You get what I'm saying, as opposed to the old system, which was way better for this kind of setting, where it wasn't about engaging in challenging combat man to man, it was about just being an assassin, executing people as fast as possible. We'll get to that in a second. And the locations that they were set in were locations that have been around for a long time, and so it allowed for the maps to have more shit justified to be in them. More shit that makes sense, at least. Basically what I'm trying to get at here is that you're playing through the setting in England, for example, so you got your Gloucester or whatever the fuck, a big city, big chapel, whatever. You leave, you go around, you'll gallop around, and then you find another little village, or you find like Hadrian's Wall, up in the north, or you go down to London and it's a big ass place. In America, in this setting here, you had these main cities, I'm going back to Assassin's Creed 3 again. There's a reason why the big wide frontier wasn't big and wide at all. It was very small concentrated location with a lot of trees, allowing you to do tree parkour, which has been removed in this new RPG system that they have now. And it was done that way because the developers were like, there's no way that we're going to have this big, vast, empty stretch of land that has basically nothing in it. It doesn't fit the Assassin's Creed style of game. So once again, they would have to be changing that, in my opinion, because none of this shit would fit in a setting like this. Just imagine Red Dead Redemption 2 with swords, claymores, axes, spears, etc. And I know that some of you crazy motherfuckers in my comment sections are probably thinking, whoa dude, that would be awesome. But then when you just get shot by a fucking guy named Randall or some shit using a revolver or a repeater rifle, which already existed at this time and were far more normal than those aforementioned melee weapons, you would probably be changing your mind. So they would absolutely need to change the entire framework rework of the combat system. We're not talking about axes and swords anymore, we're talking about weapons, and honestly, potentially the entire open world concept rework too, if they wanted to make a good game. I repeat, if they wanted to make a good game. That's very important, because I don't think Ubisoft sometimes thinks about these kinds of things very clearly. I think Ubisoft, you know, like I just talked about the big empty frontier, I think Ubisoft doesn't care at all about having a big empty frontier, because in their mind, it's very easy to not make a location empty anymore. You just cake it with question mark bullshit all over the map, with small little loot chests for you to find, with pretty much nothing of worth in them. There's a reason why Assassin's Creed 3 didn't try to do the whole open world thing despite open world games already picking up pace at the time. It's just, it would have sucked. Tightly designed open areas with a greater focus on parkour would be imperative here in this new game, which also means that they would need to redesign the parkour, because currently there is technically no parkour. You just walk, you run, and you can climb things, and then you can jump off of things. But that's about it. We don't even have a dedicated jump button. That's only right now in Assassin's Creed Mirage. You know, Assassin's Creed Shadows, as far as I know, doesn't have it. It didn't when I played it, at least. The last time we saw real parkour was in Assassin's Creed Unity, and that was a long time ago now. For this setting to work, I believe that we would need that back as well. We'd also need a smarter and faster combat system where we would be far more of an assassin who kills swiftly and skillfully, and of course uses guns if need be, rather than something that would look like the last 5 Assassin's Creed releases where we swing a stick at people. So that's yet another weird thing that makes this rumor make no sense to me. The scale of the project does not make sense. The reason for the cancellation sounds cliché, the release date doesn't make any sense at all, and the concept for the game, you know, the gameplay, the setting, the core mechanics, they are all wrong as well. In fact, they are so wrong that I would even say that if you were going to cancel a video game for any reason whatsoever, I would be canceling it because of this rather than because of politics. But hey, let's scratch all of that off for a second and assume that this is a real thing that Ubisoft would have gone for. This is where things go off the tracks. I won't repeat the stuff that I just mentioned a few minutes ago, you know, the whole embarrassing way that Yasuke was portrayed, how dogshit the story was, the hip-hop nonsense, so on and so forth. These are just some examples of how ridiculous things would get in this Civil War era Assassin's Creed. Because Ubisoft has no tact. Hell, forget about tact, Ubisoft hasn't written a good story or good characters in a while. They've been getting worse, hitting rock bottom after Shadows, and the fact that the same fucking studio would be handling this new game is just insane. It's an immediate shutdown. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be that guy. Actually, I don't mind being that guy at all here. The writers of Assassin's Creed Shadows should get fired just like Veilguard's writers were. Honestly, the entire director should go. I don't even know how this is possible, but they even fucked up the combat, dude. This is a massive problem that would land this game in an electrified tub of hot water. Then, well, we already know how this would go. The game's media would cope and lie for months about how the game is actually a success, until the day where they would finally admit that it's a failure, but it's only a failure because of racism or whatever, instead of the disgraceful quality of the game itself. The concept itself would be interesting, but to pull it off, you would need mature and talented writers and directors to actually get a good story written rather than just some weak, modernized bullshit made to virtue signal and inject modern, current-day language and themes that would effectively turn it into an uninspired, white man bad simulator for social media points. You would also need a release date that is not set for 2027. You would need Ubisoft to take this seriously. It's a different setting. The way that the thing is structured does not fit with their current system. They would need to rework things, they would need to rethink things, they would need to reboot basically the series to become Assassin's Creed again. And of course that's not easy to nail, even if it, in my opinion, is far more worth it to do than the We Was Samurai and Shit simulator that we got in 2025. Characters like Connor, Adewale, and even Bayek just 8 years ago video proved that Ubisoft knew how to write characters like this in a functional way that respected their settings, respected the audience, and most of all, respected the very characters themselves by giving them a story of their own from which to grow on us. These were done much better, and honestly, sometimes I want to just blame modern writers in general, as the decline in writing and stories is not just unique to Ubisoft, but damn man, the truth is that even the characters in Assassin's Creed Valhalla were written way better than this. Truly, I have no idea how the fuck Shadows turned out so bad, but without addressing that major issue, every Ubisoft game is in jeopardy going forward. It wouldn't just be this mysterious Assassin's Creed game in the Civil War, it's not even just Assassin's Creed itself, it's everything that Ubisoft is making. But yeah, it's especially game ideas with settings like these that include heavy, complex and sensitive historical and cultural weight that usually bear the brunt of the problems. Because activists will literally fuck all of this up. You guys can take a look to your side over to the film and TV show industry and you can see just how bad shit gets with productions like Robin Hood with a Y, She Said, Dear White People, Cleopatra, the latest garbage being spewed out of Doctor Who. Good god, even The Last of Us show with that "I'm gonna be a dad" bullshit. Oh my god, brother, what are you doing? And the sad thing is, I can keep going just off the top of my head. The Acolyte, Indiana Jones and the Feminist Stone, or whatever the fuck that latest one was called, She-Hulk, Women Talking, Bros, Velma, The Woman King, Rings of Power, Witcher Season 3, good god, why did I have to remind myself of Witcher Season 3 and Rings of Power? Oh my god. Oh, why do I do this to myself in these videos? I just wanted to make an Assassin's Creed video and I'm just unlocking the Pandora's box of cringe PTSD from the depths of my mind. Oh, I'm gonna need to drink some water and pause.
One more step. So,
Okay, I'm back guys. Suffice it to say that even though I complain a lot about video games, this syndrome, this disease, is even worse over there in the film and TV show / streaming business. In fact, that's why I go so hard sometimes, because I don't want gaming to keep falling to activism like they did. I mean shit, that would mean near infinite channel growth for me, as I would be swimming in an ocean of cringe, but it would also mean the destruction of this medium, the death of so many beloved IPs and studios that I still believe can be saved if the problem gets identified and tackled right now. So yeah, fellas, activists cannot handle subject matter like this. They just appropriate it and turn it into shit. I hold gaming in a much higher standard. I can go back and play Assassin's Creed 3, which is a game set in the Revolutionary War, where we play as a Native American and actually have a fantastic time because of how well done the game was. It's not Expedition 33 masterpiece levels of writing and etc, don't get me wrong, but it's competent. I am not super critical, I'm really not. Games just really suck that much these days. I just need competency to have a good time, not much more than that. And I even have a pretty high tolerance level towards bugs and etc. Connor is a likable guy. I didn't like him when I was young and played for the first time, because it was basically impossible for anyone to fill Ezio's shoes, you know? But I grew to love him and his values and convictions, and his struggles between doing what's right for his people while also understanding the inevitability of America's revolt against the British and their own, their own independence. Connor basically had to pick a side and place trust on men who he is so unsure of, such as Washington himself. Like, that was some good shit. Meanwhile, if done nowadays, how much do you want to bet that we would have like 60 hours of dogshit writing, constantly going on about stolen land, immigration, and a bunch of other shit that would be purposefully framed as more important than the actual events at the time? Because I would bet everything it would be immediately what they would go for. Co-opting the setting, ignoring the character, ignoring the history, not even trying to weave a good story out of it, and just make it about contemporary political issues going on today. And I wasn't kidding before about banging Lincoln's wife. You can bet that that would be in the fucking game, brother. And that right there is what is the actual problem with making this supposed game. It's not that the political climate is too unstable, it's not that the subject matter is too sensitive, it's just that they would be unable to disrespect and corrupt it. And for some, they've run out of patience with stuff like that, and so they fight tooth and nail to defend their culture, their history, and most of all, to defend the truth against agenda-driven bullshit that doesn't even belong in video games.
What have you done?
When my people go to war, a hatchet is buried into a post to signify its start. When the threat is ended, the hatchet is removed.
And for others who are not into the whole controversy stuff and politics, it would be too cringe and deprived of any interesting plot points or character quirks. I mean, just look at Yasuke and Naoe. These are the most boring fucking people on the planet. Again, the contrast between this and even Valhalla, which gave us characters like Eivor and Basim, which were at least interesting, is crazy. Plus the whole connections to Odin, Loki, and Tyr were cool too, like they were cool story concepts. But in Shadows, there is no such thing. It is devoid of creativity. It's like Ubisoft, who was already in decline at the time in 2020, suddenly got replaced by fucking lobotomites. And now they wanted the same studio that made Shadows, Ubisoft Quebec, to work on another game? What are you, fucking crazy? What are you huffing paint or something? For all we know, this is why the game got cancelled. The brass was like, oh my god, fellas, Assassin's Creed Shadows is getting railed out there. Perhaps it would be better to, I don't know, just cancel anything at all that this studio is making. We're gonna need some restructuring over here. All of this about politics is just cope. We've had stories like these before. In Red Dead Redemption 2, they put in KKK members burning crosses out in the fields in the middle of the night that we could intervene in and take care of it, if you know what I mean. And that game came out during Trump's first presidency. And if I looked through some more releases, I'm sure that I would find more recent examples of this kind of thing. The problem isn't putting racisms in a video game. The problem is activists being incapable of writing these stories and handling these themes without coming all over themselves. Sorry, anyway, let's close off this video with a bang with something that is long overdue. We need to address the shilling. So, in the interest of this video not running too long, I'm going to use one shill who is basically the king of Assassin's Creed shilldom, Jawraptor, who immediately pounced on this news to virtue signal about shit that he has no clue about and that even goes against his own best interests as a content creator who would directly benefit from the well-being of the Assassin's Creed franchise. He said, "It sucks that developers can't freely explore their creative vision and make game in their preferred setting anymore. But after the shitstorm, manufactured hate, and even death threats the Shadows devs received, it would be insane to send them into another nightmare just 2 years later. Sad it has come to this." I'm actually amazed that he took a few minutes to write this. That's time that he could have spent buying and shilling more microtransactions and loot boxes from Ubisoft games while doing his live streams. But anyway, let's get into this. First, just to get it out of the way, even though it should go without saying, sending threats to developers is unhinged behavior that is both detestable and also doesn't accomplish a goddamn thing except making everyone criticizing the games look bad. Now, onward to Johsz here. I actually used to watch him a long time ago, around 2016 and 2017. He was still a small channel back then, doing genuine news covering on big open-world action-adventure games or action RPG games like Horizon Zero Dawn and Assassin's Creed Origins. I used to like him because he didn't just give us updates on what's going on, he also gave us his take, he actually had opinions, preferences and criticisms towards the games that he covered. That all changed as he grew and essentially became just another Access Media YouTube channel, sort of like IGN but with broken English. And then later, as he got massive, he actually got worse than IGN because all semblance of personal opinion or criticism was gone, and he was even making content focused on the microtransaction bullshit on Ubisoft games. And I don't mean criticizing it or advocating for Ubisoft to stop nickeling and diming their customers. No sir, he just went live to show everyone the new items on the eShop, buy them, showcase them, cover the bullshit pay-to-win type of advantages that the weapons and armors came with, so on and so forth. At best, he would criticize an item by saying, "It's up to you if you think this armor set is worth $8 or not," and that's about it. Thanks a lot, Johsz. Thank you for, using your voice and platform to really put the screws on Ubisoft and advocate for less monetization. Anyway, now let's get onto this nonsense he said here and why it's utter bullshit. Does he genuinely believe that this creative freedom that he's speaking of is this fantastic thing that is worth pursuing, even if the developers working at the studio have a terrible disconnect with the franchise that they're working on and their very own fanbase? I asked him the question myself, he didn't reply, it's fine, I mean, I'm not owed a response, but, the themes aside, which is a whole other problem, Ubisoft has completely lost it when it comes to this franchise. Their best venture of late has been Mirage, a spin-off side game that was just an expansion to begin with. And I say it's their best venture lately because we actually play as assassins. We actually wear the shit that assassins used to wear. It's a fucking Assassin's Creed game that actually looks like an Assassin's Creed game, which is insane to say because this whole RPG era began in 2017, and in these 8 years, with 5 separate games, this side project was the one that most resembled what the franchise is named after. They also put extra focus on stealth and traversal rather than in being anything other than an assassin. Sadly, the game even suffers from this a little bit because as a side project, it is using the same assets as Valhalla, so they couldn't really rework the gameplay. So for instance, in order to de-incentivize combat in a new and creative way, they just made the combat feel terrible and annoying to engage in. But anyway, in other words, their smallest priority team did their best work and their highest priority team for the long-awaited Assassin's Creed Japan did their worst work. You need to be trusted in order to be given the full leeway to grab the company's hundreds of millions of dollars and freely explore your creative vision in a preferred setting. This isn't a willy-nilly thing where you just do whatever the fuck you want because of your creative freedom. This is the games industry. It's cutthroat. And if you screw up, things need to change. There's no space for allowing a team that provides a failure to have another go at failing again, which is precisely the case here. Again, Ubisoft Quebec made Shadows and would now be making the Civil War game as well, having certainly learned nothing. Which is the biggest problem going on right now, and not just related to Ubisoft either, it's some other studios too, where companies or studios screw up and then soy boys like himself, like Johsz here and many other content creators, some in and out of the Ubisoft ambassador program, come out crying about shitstorms of manufactured hate, and take death threats as an extreme example that exists in everything, which again, is not a good thing, not excusable in the least, but realistically not a unique thing either, and pretend as if all the controversy surrounding this one game, in this case Assassin's Creed Shadows, means nothing. And it's all just a bunch of really weird and forced, baseless, fake hate campaigns online that do not reflect the actual reception of the game or community feedback. When in reality it's the other way around. Are death threats ridiculous, disgusting and condemnable? Of course they are, but that doesn't change the fact that Shadows is a shitty game born of a shitty idea, one in a long-running stream of them from Ubisoft over the past few years, and people like Jawraptor know this shit. they just won't admit it while it isn't safe and on brand to do so. These are major problems that need to be called out, some of which he used to call out already when he was authentic. When mistakes are made, when companies have lost their way and have lost sight of their priorities or of the very core of the franchises that they're working on, change must happen to avoid them failing any further. This is positive change happening. This isn't poor little creatives not being able to explore their creative vision. This is sense being knocked into their heads to reassess the terrible directions that they're taking these franchises in. I know a chill like himself could have Ubisoft announcing tomorrow that the next Assassin's Creed game, in all their creative, free vision glory, will have dinosaurs, spaceships, and monster trucks, and I know that he would be clapping like a fucking seal, like, "Oh yeah guys, this is super exciting news from Ubisoft," but realistically, unbound creative freedom to the point where the creators are either losing the plot, being over-ambitious, or threading on themes that they can't realistically handle is a bad thing. And then recognizing that and doing something else is a good thing. And let's not pretend like this isn't exactly what the fuck is happening. Games and concepts get cancelled every day. This isn't the first, the second, the 10th, or the last. Let's not pretend like the writing in this franchise hasn't sunk lower than the fucking Titanic either. That alone is a problem that it doesn't even matter what the concept is, it's going to be haunting Ubisoft title after title after title. Bad writing plus incredibly sensitive contemporary subject matters equals disaster. So, disaster averted. Channels like JawRaptor should actually be thankful for this, because this means the Assassin's Creed franchise will survive for a little while longer, so they can keep profiting off of killing it slowly through toxic positivity. But that about does it for this video though, guys and gals. Let me know your thoughts on all of this. Do you guys think that this is a fake story? Do you think it's a real story or has real elements but it has been severely embellished? Do you think JawRaptor is a shill? Well, leave your comments below. Thank you very much for watching, drop the video a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all very soon on the next one. Take care.